I would speculate that Twitter, at least right now, would prefer to have a law that says you can't boot anyone off unless they violate the First Amendment, or even stronger law, but you can't delete any tweet unless it violates the First Amendment, and you can't ever ban anyone, just like you can't ban someone from being in the middle of a town. Because right now, Twitter under Musk, at least, is it faces various activist groups and individuals that want to see more censorship. And Musk, it seems, is relatively pro free speech guy, certainly more than the previous leadership.
Yes.
But he's worried that if he grants too much free speech to users, then advertisers will boycott, as they have been doing.
Right.
Maybe some other users will leave in protest. But if his hands are tied by the government, he can say, "Look,
Yes.
this is the law. It's
Right.
the First Amendment. This is America."
Yes.
Well, I would guess he and the other managers of Twitter would prefer to have the kind of law I'm talking about.
I think you're right. I think that's a good point because essentially it would allow him to wash his hands of it. Now, this seems to me, though, to rest on an empirical claim, which is that, in fact, it is better for the state of public discourse in the medium to long run to have robust protections on this platform. I think that that's an erroneous empirical claim. I think, okay, so data are hard to come by on this, obviously, so we have to speculate to some degree, but I'll adduce a few lines of evidence. First, I think the reason it's different from the public square is because one, there are way more people on it, and that's important for some reasons, which I'll set aside and we can address in a bit. But two, in the public square, there is actually the threat of social obloquy, of a kind of uh, derogation, denigration, chastisement from fellow citizens that you don't have on Twitter. So in the public square, if you act like an absolute jackass and say you advocate for, child pornography and you call people all kinds of horrific racial epithets, you would legitimately fear for your safety. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing, but I do think there are social norms which indeed suppress people's worst urges. And that on average, that's probably good. I'm not saying it is in every case. That does not prevail on X because there's no real fear that if I fire off some idiotic insult, that somebody could actually scorn me in the same way, especially since many people on X are anonymous. So they don't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
to.
the anonymity would seem to be the key thing there.
Yes, I mean, I still think there's a different. I think our brain evolved more or less, well, just straightforwardly more
Yeah,
for interpersonal interaction, and so it's not terribly intimidating when somebody gets mad at you on Twitter. Maybe one could compare it to like a lot of behavior in childhood was thwarted merely by the threat of an angry father because that
yeah,
was damned intimidating. Okay. So, in that sense, I don't think it works like the normal public square. And because of that, I actually think that if you care about free speech, this will sound paradoxical, but I don't
yeah.
mean it to be too clever. If you care about free speech, you actually would want curation because I think what happens without curation is that discourse is inevitably degraded by trolls.
That's a very good point about how we behave differently online, particularly if we're anonymous online, because the threat of social disapproval of our peers and neighbors taking offense and scolding us for being a jackass isn't present. Um, I think people should. Yeah, I think the block button is a valuable tool. I think people should be able to mute certain words, and so they don't have to see the N word if they don't want to see it. But I don't think they should be able to prevent other people on the platform from using that term amongst themselves if they wish to. I mean, it's not a term I would use, but I don't see the threat of overuse of racial slurs and other unpleasant language to be a sufficiently great when it comes to the public discourse in general as to justify allowing people to ban users permanently for using them, or to delete delete tweets that use them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so let's make a distinction between ban permanently and just removing the post.